Hi, I'm Yellow Killer Bee, and this is Mickey Mania. This is the Japanese version that I'm submitting this year. I actually submitted the US version last year, and so there's a couple changes that I'll be talking about during the run. So, without further ado, so right off the bat, there's kind of an interesting trick. There's some things in this game called level warps, and to accomplish each one you have to do a certain series of movements which causes you to warp to the end of the level. So this first one, you have to touch this cat on the nose and then jump on his head, and that's pretty much it. So what actually is happening there is the game gets overloaded with too many sprites, and then the programmers put in something that would let you jump to the end of the level instead of having the game crash or whatever might have happened. So it was actually an intended thing, and what you're not seeing is there's a screen that pops up that flashes forward, backward, and you have to hit on forward or else you'll actually go backwards. So I'm going to throw a marble here, and that actually sets up the next portion so that the boxes are falling at a better rate so that you don't have to wait for them. So it's actually changing the cycle when you do that. So you see the boxes are falling in front of me and behind me. If I didn't throw that marble, they'd be falling right on top of me, which is not good. So there's one little weird change from the Japanese version. This little pause there, that's actually Japanese only. And it really threw me off when I started playing the Japanese version, because you do this boss in the non-intended way where you jump on the bottom gear and then kill the upper gear. Well, to have that pause really throws off the timing of everything more than you might think. So this level actually has the JP only trick in it, which is really interesting, and one of the reasons that I think it's really valid to bring this game back, even though it was run last year, because this trick is really cool. So it's also a very difficult trick to get, so I'm going to try to get it within the first couple tries. But there we go, we got first try. Mickey's channeling his inner Mega Man, and so that's what's called like a rope zip. And so you have to hit the jump button on the first frame when you grab the rope. So it is a very difficult trick to pull off. But it is marathon safe because you can try it again. There's a second level warp. That one's really easy. You throw a marble within quite a long range and you can still get it. So yeah, the rope zips are a very cool part, and they're JP only. And yeah, that was very fortunate to get both on first try. But even if I didn't get them on first try, you can try it again as many times as you want. So if I were to miss it up in the marathon, I'd probably just keep trying it until I got it, just so people would get to see it. And that trick you can actually do on every rope in the game, but there's less ropes in this game than you might think. There's actually only one other level that has swinging ropes in it. And the way that it works is you seem to take like a similar trajectory from like the angle that you're jumping onto the rope from and the speed that you're going. So on some ropes it just doesn't work because you wouldn't be able to get enough height to continue on to the end of the level. In fact, if you don't get enough height on the first rope jump, you just kind of you die because you're not high enough, and so you run into a bunch of enemies. Which is a possibility, but this game's fairly lenient as far as the amount of guys that it gives you. So I'm not too worried about having those tricks in the marathon. It's definitely worth having them. This bat is actually less of a troll in the Japanese version, so Japan bat is a friendlier bat than the USA bat. He's at a totally different pattern in the Japanese version for some reason than the US version, and it's just much easier to kind of avoid him. Alright, so we're headed into the Mad Doctor boss fight, and this fight is like pretty much the only RNG in the entire game. He throws off a couple of different patterns every time you hit him, and some are easier to dodge than others. So what I'm trying to do here is like dodge these plus try to hit him as soon as his invincibility frames are gone. So you see how he walked there? You try to like not let him walk at all. If you can keep him completely frozen, that's like the optimum fight. And that's the end of Mad Doctor. We're moving on to Moose Hunt, and this level is actually very different on the Japanese version, just because they totally changed how the sticks are falling. So there's these branches that fall down, and the timing is just completely different. So basically this level was one I had to totally relearn, and it's actually much more difficult for whatever reason to dodge these. The timing is just different. But luckily this level's not very long, so if you can just get through it, then you'll be fine. Okay. Rocks. Unexpected rocks. One of the nice things for casual players, though, is you can actually see the branches, while in the US, like, they're totally off screen. So you can't even see them before they fall on you. So actually, this would be the easier level for a casual player, I would think. But for a speedrun, I think it's more difficult. So this is pretty much the same as US. It's actually one of those levels which is really scary casually, but as a speedrun it's kind of relaxing. Because the pattern's always the same, you just collect the apples and go fast. So now would be like a good time for donations, or also a good time just to talk about you know, when the game came out and the fact that its animations are just so bright and beautiful, and it was worked on by actual Disney animators, and that's partially the reason why, I think. There is like little cutscenes that are playing in between every level, but you can skip them. So of course I'm doing that to save time. So this level is probably one of the more technically difficult levels as far as movement. I'm doing a little skip here that's intended. You jump over that. A lot of people who play this casually didn't know that you could actually make that jump, but it's very needed for the speedrun because you get extra health, and health management is such a big deal in this game. It's important that you try not to take any unintentional damage, and you try to get all of the health pickups that are on the route. So with these ramps, they're programmed in a kind of an interesting way, because you can skip some of them if you jump on certain stairs, but you'll see I pause at the top. That's actually because it's forcing me to pause there. Like, it's programmed in such a way where when the ramp is falling down, it like makes Mickey stand still so he slides down the ramp, even if he's not currently sliding down the ramp. So it's kind of, that's how they, you know, force you to slide down when the ramp goes, or else you would just be able to walk up the ramp as it was making you slide. So it just creates some kind of strange pauses because you're not supposed to be able to skip those. All right, a little bit of a tricky jump here. All right, we just barely made it. This next level is actually, there's a possible zip on there, but because the zips are kind of difficult to get, and you actually can't zip all the way to the end of the level just because the way the level is laid out. So, so we don't go for it, but it is interesting because when you do the zips, you are holding down the jump button the entire time, or else you will fall out of there. So they're really 100% controllable how far you go. So if you wanted to zip through half a level, that's totally actually an option. This part is thankfully skippable. Like, we decided just to take a bunch of damage because to do this without taking damage takes a really long time because you have to stop and duck underneath these hats. And so it just saves a lot of time if you just don't do it. So another interesting thing about this game is it's actually based off of the old Mickey Mouse cartoons. So every level is based off of like an early cartoon in chronological order. So this next one's called Mickey and the Beanstalk. It's actually the first one I saw as a kid. So there's two strategies for this seed section. I'm going to do the safe one probably during the marathon, just because I won't want to take extra damage. But there's a fast one where you don't actually take extra damage. It's kind of hard to get. If I was actually going for world record, I probably would have tried for it because I have an extra health right now. Coming up is one of the harder tricks in the game for sure. It's called Dragonfly Bounce. I'm going to try to get it first try here. Okay. We might have got it. 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're good. So that one is very tricky because if you don't do the timing just right, either the dragonfly will turn around before you get the last bounce, which will cause you to fall short, or you just miss it entirely if it's not close enough to you yet. So there's a very tiny window. You kind of have to pause and then go at exactly the right time. So these falling guys, I'm guessing they're like beetle larvae. I'm not even sure. I mean, they kind of look like they're babies. They look like they have diapers on. I'm not sure. But they're really annoying because they do cause you to have to wait. And you always want to kind of blow through things as fast as possible. But you definitely have to wait because there's just way too much damage that you would take if you tried to get around them. I'd say that this level is probably one of the easier levels. The levels are definitely not in order of difficulty in this game at all. Which, if you played this game casually, which it's been really fun to have people come in the channel and be like, oh yeah, I played this as a kid and I never beat it, and that's usually what people say because the difficulty of this game is pretty high considering it's a kid's game. And the order of level difficulty doesn't like go in order. So some of the earlier levels, like the Lonesome Ghost level, is actually much harder than this level, which comes later. Which, as a kid, can be really frustrating, especially since you only get one continue. Alright, this is probably my favorite level in the whole game. And it's just because, as a speedrun, it's really fun. You can just hold right the entire time and never stop holding right. Which just, I don't know, it just is very satisfying to play. Because you feel like you're going as fast as you possibly can. That Pluto is not in the American version. They added that for some reason. And then also at the end, the Mickey here like will pop out of the top of the bottle. In the US version, he doesn't actually get to go for a ride. He just stays there. Okay, so this set of levels is actually pretty difficult, and they are the last set, so that makes sense. These chandeliers physics sometimes mess with you a little bit. I'm gonna try to get it first try here. I barely made that jump. It really has to do with making sure you jump at the right time, but it's not exactly when you think you should have to. It has its own special physics. Okay, I'm taking a little bit more damage than I'd like to here. So I'm gonna try to be careful. Oh, nope, I took some damage there. That's alright. I should spawn pretty close to the same spot. So that's one nice thing. If you do take an unintentional death, especially later in a level, the checkpoint system is nice. So it makes it more marathon safe because you don't have to redo levels. And I didn't change any of the settings. I'm just playing on normal. And it still does that for you, so... So basically what the Japanese text is, like the the idea of this game is that you are saving all the Mickeys. And so you saved one, but since this is a level, last level, there's actually two. And that goes along with the idea of the cartoon. It's the Prince and the Pauper, where the two Mickeys switch spots. So you gotta save both of them for this level. Alright, coming up is another pretty hard trick. It's called Duck Jump. And all you're doing is using the momentum of this water to jump to the platform much earlier than you're intended to. But the timing is very close, so we're gonna try to get it here. Alright, we got it. Very nice. And you'll notice a lot of these enemies I'm just jumping right through. Certain enemies have a very generous hitbox when it comes to like having invincibility frames where you can just kind of go through them. These crossbowmen's not so much, so you notice I actually killed that guy instead of having to wait. This section is probably the trickiest section to go through without taking any damage, especially this last part. That actually went perfect. So that's good, because it's nice to have extra health for the end, not only for safety purposes, but also you can save some time. So yeah, there is a couple auto-scrollers in the game, so I think that would be good as far as time to read donations and things like that. This run is actually going way better than I thought it would for this recording. So I'm really happy, because some of the tricks can be a little hard to get first try, but hopefully by the time, if this gets accepted, I will be to the point where I'm very consistent. That's the goal anyway. Alright. I'm jumping over those because they're some of the easier ones to dodge. These also are. So I'm going to take damage on all the rest of the barrels, and that will save me some time because I don't have to wait. Also, it's interesting because these barrels make a clinking noise, and they're made out of wood, which doesn't make any sense. But then in the Genesis version, they're actually metal balls that are falling. A lot of the version differences are very interesting because the Genesis version actually has extra levels, which makes it a different speedrunning category entirely. And then, like, the JP version for the Super Nintendo is different than the US version in a lot of ways, and I don't know, it's just really interesting like how many different versions of this game there are, because there's actually a PlayStation 1 version also. Alright, this level is kind of an auto-scroller because you can't go up any faster than the screen is scrolling here. I tried it, it doesn't work. And then the last level warp is at the end. And we're going to try to do it damageless, but we have an extra health just in case. But it's always scary when you come to this level and you don't have any extra health, because then you're forced to do damageless. Okay, we didn't get the damageless, but we should still get the warp. Alright, and now we're on to Pete, and Pete is the final boss, and he actually is a huge auto-scroller. Because you can't speed this fight up really much at all, except by making sure you hit all your cues exactly as you should. Alright, get this life just for safety. So this first section you hit him 5 times, and then the second section you hit him 6 times. I just kind of have to keep track. And they actually take away your marbles altogether. You can't even shoot. The marble counter went away. They make it very obvious that this is not, this is the end boss. You cannot defeat him by any normal means. So he just gives you everything you need for some reason, as is so often true in bosses. Also, the music in this game is so good. I just really enjoy playing these like Disney 2D platformers just because The graphics are always bright and colorful and well done. The music's always great. Oh, okay. I'm gonna take damage here because, oops, I died. I got distracted, that's alright. So unfortunately, we have to start this fight over, but normally this fight is actually not too hard in a speedrun, and so it shouldn't be an issue, but I wasn't keeping count. But yeah, as I was saying, like, the older games like Aladdin or Lion King or, you know, Quackshot, all of the Disney games are always really fun. I feel like I should be counting so I don't forget. What is this, 3? 2? 3? Something like that. So, there hasn't been a new world record in this game for a while, but I really feel like JP has some possibilities just because the zips, you know, they save a lot of time, especially if you can get them both first try. Okay, I think this was the last one. Okay, yeah, we're good. So now we'd have to do 6 of these. And these stars actually come down in a pattern, but for casual players, it's very hard to, they seem very random and it's really hard to dodge them. But one of the earlier runners of this game who was running it last year at the same time I was actually made me a pattern and was like, okay, this is where you stand. So that's something that's really useful for new players because, if, as you saw before, if you die on this boss fight, it can lose a lot of time. But I've been doing it for so long that I just kind of like eyeball the pattern and just go with it. Alright, I think we have one more hit here. So you have to flip this switch in order to have the wrecking ball come down. And this will be the last one. Nice. So that's Mickey Mania, Japanese version. And I really think that it would be a great addition to Disney Block. So yeah, I'm Yellow Killer Bee. Thank you so much for considering this game.